The update. That's what happens when you update. We're recording. You can't find the buttons that were once there and well, to be updated. So, as we were just chatting before we came on, grew up north central Ohio and then moved to the Valley of the Sun and then to the Pacific Northwest. What climatic venture do you enjoy the most? The grayness of Ohio, the sun, the Pacific Northwest?
Definitely not the grayness of Ohio. um, yeah, definitely not. But it was, well, it was kind of the grayness. Well, it was Ohio actually that got me to Arizona
Wow.
because growing up in north central Ohio, of course, my family, we were huge Ohio State Buckeye fans.
Right.
And so when I was a junior in high school, we went to see Penn State play Ohio State which was then the Fiesta Bowl in Tempe, Arizona.
Arizona. There you go. Yeah.
Yep. And it was like, I don't know, 75 degrees on December 29th. And I was like, I could go to school here.
Look, there's a school right there. Look at that.
Right there. So, yeah, that's how I got to Arizona. Hmm.
Yeah. So what'd you study at ASU?
Oh, this is a funny story. So I started out studying engineering, biomedical engineering,
Ooh.
because I had a teacher in high school, Betty Campbell. She was the physics teacher at Marion Harding High School, and I can remember her telling our class, if you get into engineering, you can make a lot of money. I was like,
Ooh.
cool, I can make a lot of money, and I did okay in math and physics,
Yeah.
but it was the drafting class that did me in. Because I was a little bit late my first day to the drafting class,
Ooh.
and so I go in and I asked the person next to me. I was like, "What are we supposed to do?" And he was like, "You need to draw that box up there." And I was like, so I looked at it. I just kept drawing squares on I'm like, this is the dumbest class I've ever been in. I mean, like I'm just drawing squares and squares. Well, I was supposed to draw it in perspective,
Oh.
but I had like my visual stuff that way.
Yeah.
No. So I quickly exited engineering after my first semester and did actually what I played growing up all the time, which was being a teacher. So I
Yeah.
majored in English education.
Yeah. And then molded young minds.
Yes. In the classroom and on the court because I was a basketball coach and a
Oh,
volleyball
well,
coach.
good for you.
Hmm.
Yeah, how long were you doing? How long did you do that?
For three
And one
years.
coach, yeah. How many?
3 years.
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, what kind of coach were you? Players coach, coaches coach?
I would say I was a player's coach.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. It, as I'm vertically challenged, as if you remember correctly, but I always loved volleyball, and so of course, in my day, they didn't have guys volleyball going through school when we were going through school, and so
Hmm.
yeah, I always wish, but I was a short guy, so I spent most of my time diving on the floor, so that's what
Well,
I.
that's good. That's a good thing to do in volleyball.
Yeah, volleyball, and so I was closer to the ground than the trees that I played with typically, and so it's like I
Right.
I didn't mind going to the floor. Um, and then what takes you out of the classroom?
Um, so I was really involved at Emanuel Lutheran when I was growing up, and when I went out to Tempe, one of the first things I did was to find a church, a Lutheran church, and like I had to that point, I had never seen a woman who was a pastor. I mean, so the
In those years,
thought,
right? Yeah.
yeah, to be a pastor, even though I mean people had, I mean, I graduated from high school in 1983, so women had been ordained for what 13 years
Yeah, right.
in the Lutheran church, but still,
In
I
our
had never,
church, right? Yeah.
yeah. Um, and so I found this church and I got involved there, and one of the pastors there said, "Have you ever thought about going to seminary?" And I was like, "What?" And so
No.
we had conversations about that. Yeah, no, I
Right.
had
No. Right.
right. So I went to seminary sort of reluctantly, thinking, well, I'm gonna see. Which looking back, I'm like, that was really dumb, to go like to
Not
like,
really
oh,
commit. Right. It's like, I'll go
yeah,
check it out. Right. Yeah.
it's a lot of money and a lot of commitment, to do something like that.
Yeah.
So, but I went, and it was after so I went to Berkeley,
Yeah.
California
Yeah. The
for
LTF. Yeah.
that. And after my first year was, I mean, I would say my call was affirmed like by the teaching parish that I was involved in. So it was all, I mean, for me, I think my call is always confirmed by my relationships with people. I mean, it's never about just me or my mind or my heart. It's always in relationship with others too.
Yeah. So I'll ask you the question we always get asked. And so, what is your call story?
Well, it's very circuitous, because it does involve all of those pieces,
Yeah.
becoming an English teacher, and then going to seminary. And as you know, in seminary, you have to take your required year of clinical pastoral education,
Yeah.
and I did that after my first year. And after my first year, I said, I'm not going to be a chaplain. I'm going to be a pastor.
Yeah. How'd that play out? Yeah. We'll get to that here.
So that's exactly what I did. I became a pastor,
Yeah.
and went to Tucson, Arizona for my first call, and then to Hood River, Oregon for my second call, which is where I'm sitting right now. I'm sitting in my dining room in Hood River. And was at the parish that I served here for 7 years, and then did a little mission development stint at a place called Soul
Soul
Cafe.
Cafe. What? Tell
Cafe.
me about Soul Cafe.
Well, as I observed what was going on in Hood River and interacted with people, I noticed that people were interested in talking to me about their journey and their life, and their faith sometimes, but they weren't in my church doing that. They
Right.
were out different places. And
In the
so
world. In the world. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in the world, yeah, they were out in the world. And so Hood River it's a really cool town. I mean, I encourage anyone who can come visit Hood River to come visit. But they're like really nice little gift shops downtown. And so one of the days I walked into a gift shop, and there are all those little word stones, which were at that point in time, those were kind of unique. I mean, you see them all over the place now, but I
Yeah.
think they were kind of unique then. But on those word stones were stories like faith, grace,
Right.
love, hope. And I was like, oh my gosh, these are the words of our faith.
Right.
Here they are in a store, in a
In a
store.
gift shop. Right. A trinket
Yeah,
shop. Yeah.
gift
Right.
shop.
Yeah.
What if like we were out there in the world, where, I mean, meeting people in that. So I actually went back and I used that as an example in a sermon, and I took those word stones and I like passed them around, and I said, these are the words that I found. These are the words of our faith. We need to get out of the walls of this church to do this work, and which was a proposal for Soul Cafe. But what was really cool, one of the congregation members, who now is one of my very good friends, while I was preaching and while that was going around, she ran out to the street, got a rock, got a felt tip marker, and wrote "Count me in" on it. So
Yeah.
when that little tray of stones came back, it came back with that rock on it.
Yeah.
So, and that's how Soul Cafe was birthed, in Hood River. Which, I mean, we had an idea of what it would look like, and it actually became a place for like adolescents and teens to hang out.
Right.
Um, which was that isn't what we envisioned, but
Right.
that's what it became, and it was really cool.
Yeah. And some of all of my calls, it's sitting in places and pubs and playing trivia where I did probably some of my best ministry. People who's
Mhm.
never going to walk into the buildings.
Right.
and you just encounter them in the world, and just yeah, and it's just take your shoes off stuff. It really is
Mm,
stuff.
it is.
So how long at Soul Cafe?
5 years at Soul Cafe. I think that's right. Yeah, 5 years with
Yeah,
Soul Cafe. Hmm.
still in any expression, Soul Cafe still out there, the concept at least, maybe.
I would say Soul Cafe birthed some other emerging
Yeah,
ministries in the Oregon Synod, and for a while, the because Soul Cafe eventually closed,
yeah,
um, and the Oregon Synod kept the Soul Cafe name, and I'm not really sure where that is now. I mean, at least in a website form.
yeah.
There's some T-shirts around though with Soul
Soul
Cafe. It
Cafe
was like
on it.
Soul Cafe, caffeine for the soul was the little
Oh, there
tag.
you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's stuff like that. I mean, and in some ways, because we've done that with Earthandcup. That's why some of why we're here now with
Hmm.
the emerging ministry, and it's like realizing it's not meant to be permanent. I mean, it's part of the world,
Right.
and the world, and so don't. Why do we go into things thinking it's got to be permanent, folks? It'll serve its time, and then it's okay.
Exactly.
And it'll,
Mhm.
like you said, I mean, the language you used was birth. It'll birth something else to
Mhm.
move us down the line. Yeah, don't and trying to convince people that I mean that's the way the world is. It'll spur
Mhm.
something new,
Mhm.
and it nothing has to be permanent, and that's
Mhm.
okay, and to be okay with
Mhm.
it. And maybe we have T-shirts, but
Right.
that we
Right.
can remember it by. But we don't have to have it um, for it to be successful or not successful, whatever we
Mhm.
find it to
Exactly.
be. Yeah, yeah. So then, how do you get to chaplaincy? From I mean, because it is the world. That is world work. I mean, by in every
Right.
stretch of the means. Yeah.
So when I was doing Soul Cafe, I was actually, I mean, as many, I think, bivocational pastors do, patching together different things to make enough money, right?
Right.
To support myself and my family. So I was also like, I did some substitute teaching
Yeah.
in the schools.
Yeah.
And then I also did some coverage for the local hospital. Just it would be like on-call coverage, and then that became a Catholic hospital, and I was actually on the hiring committee for their director of spiritual care,
Yeah.
who was a local Episcopal priest who I knew, and he ended up getting. Well, he thought he needed a neck surgery, but it actually ended up being his heart. And so he asked me to come and like fill in for him while he was out, having his medical issues taken care of. And so that's how I started seeing patients. I mean, on a more regular basis as a chaplain, not just filling in. And I was like, wow, I'm kind of good at this. And I think I really liked it because I still got to be with people in um, those very important times of their lives. I mean, like you do as a parish pastor, birth, death, kind of those milestone sort of places. And I also got to be with them in places of suffering, and hear their journey with that, which in my experience in the parish, like a lot of times when people were going through really difficult times, they just stopped coming to church. And I was like, wow, but that's where it really is for me, I mean, because that's like real life. Real life isn't when it's all pretty and shiny. I mean, real life is both. It can be pretty and shiny,
Right.
and it can be really difficult. Um, so I so that morphed into like a grant got written for me to be a part-time chaplain, and here I am
Yeah.
like putting things together again, and like a volunteer coordinator,
Right.
um, which eventually led to me going back and doing a residency, which eventually led to me doing certified educator,
Right.
CPE, which eventually led to me becoming an ACPE certified educator, or CPE supervisor as it used to be
Yes. It
called,
used to be called. Yeah. You
which
like?
for me
Yeah. Go ahead.
combines my two great loves,
The
which
teaching.
is,
Yeah.
yep, my teaching and my being a pastor.
Yeah.
So, mhm.
Yeah. It CP. Well, we used to call it, my day. It was CP supervisors, right? It's just um from me, just being a student, it seems like grueling work. Is it? I mean, it can be to be a supervisor, an educator, CPE educator. That's that's tough stuff. On top of being, I mean, that's on top of being a chaplain, and that, I mean,
Right. Well, yes. And I'll tell you why that, like, when I did my first unit of CPE, the reason I know now the reason why I said I'm going to be a pastor and not a chaplain. And that's because, I mean, I worked in the oncology ward at University of California, San Francisco
yeah,
Medical Center, which is, I mean, if you work in the oncology ward there, it's difficult. And it was the time of like the AIDS crisis
right,
as well. So talk about, suffering, not just the physical suffering, but also spiritual suffering as well. And, I was asked to, well, that's the first time really that I grieved my twin brother's death. And he had died when we were 16 years old. I was 26 at that time.
right,
So I know the reason I said I want to be a pastor and not a chaplain was because I could skip over being with people suffering and pain on
right,
an everyday basis, because I couldn't sit with my own pain.
right.
And unless you can sit with your own pain,
You can.
yeah, you can't be with others, really.
Which is why we go through CPE. I mean, because I mean, it's to learn to sit with your own stuff and to
Right,
realize it's all in play, and you just can't. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, so becoming a CPE supervisor is that on steroids, is what I would say.
Right. It's like, yeah, because now you got eight of us, it's like,
Right.
it's screwing around with our stuff, it's like, yeah,
I mean, when I was doing that training, I would come home and I would cry, and my husband would be like, "Why are you doing this?" And I'd be
right.
like, "Because I can't not do it."
Yeah.
So,
And then if I read correctly, on top of all that, you decide to do uh, a demon in congregational missional leadership at Luther. Like if there's a program that let's just send you right over the top, that would be it.
well, actually, this is interesting because I was doing Soul Cafe then, and the Oregon Synod brought in Craig Van Gelder,
Right,
who was
right,
who was at Luther,
right.
and and when I heard Craig talk, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm talking about because he was all about it. It's I mean, it's
Mission,
God's
right. It's a
mission
right,
world that
yeah,
we're going to participate in that. We're not going
right,
to bring people
right,
to it. God's already out there. I was like,
right.
he's talking my language. So that's
Well, I
one of
got to
the
read
reasons.
his book. That's right. It'll tell
Yes.
me.
So that's one of the reasons why I did the DMin, but that so much helped my work as a CPE supervisor
Yeah,
too, because the work in that DMin was all about um, theologically framing and theoretically informing
right.
the work that you do, which
Yeah,
is actually that's exactly CPE. It's
right.
it's framed by my theology and informed by personality development and education theory. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
this is actually great.
So, what was your dissertation? What was your project? Yeah.
Um, it was well, the title was "Breaking Open the Alabaster Jar,"
Ooh, from
um, and it was about measuring vitality in missional emerging congregations.
huh.
So, because for me, for the most part, the only way the church knew how to measure things was through numbers, right?
And they still do, Jill. I don't know. I still got to fill out parochial reports, and that's still and I write on it every year. This is stupid.
It's stupid, right?
I know, I know. Every year I write, this is stupid. You're asking me the wrong questions.
Yeah. So, so our work was about looking at other measurements. So one of the measurements was how well does this congregation enter into confrontation and conflict?
Yeah.
Because like if you look, especially in the New Testament, I mean in the Old Testament, wherever there's like confrontation and conflict, like the Spirit is there in the midst of that.
Right.
So to me, when there's confrontation and conflict, that doesn't necessarily mean something bad is going on, but like there's something there, maybe
Right.
waiting to get born, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the Spirit drives Jesus to the wilderness,
Mm-hmm.
period. I mean, so
Right.
folks, maybe the Spirit drove us to have this intense Christian fellowship together, right? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, why can't we? And that's okay. And we need to lean into it.
Mm-hmm.
And with the promise, we will get to the other side and it'll be better. Or
Right.
something. It'll be something. Maybe
Right.
better in your eyes or my eyes, but it'll
Right.
maybe, yeah, it'll burst something new. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Luther. And yeah, that's crazy. You're a dog person.
I am. Yeah. I am mom to Luther, my 500th anniversary of the Reformation golden retriever.
That's, that's so cool. What brought you to that? I mean, it's just, yeah, yeah.
Well, we had we lost two Goldens really close together, Carmen and then Lucy. And this was, let's see, my daughter had gone off to, she was in college, and my son was a senior in high school. And I was like, oh, we're just not going to get another dog, right now anyway.
Yeah.
But my son comes home from school one day and he puts his arm around me and he's like, I'm it's so lonely when I come home from school because I used to have Emilia, his sister, and then I used to have Carmen, and then Carmen died, and then I used to have Lucy, and then Lucy died. So now I don't have anyone. I was like, okay, let's go look at dogs. It didn't take much.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh, well, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, so, yeah. And our daughter is just, she wants another dog. We lost Seamus several years ago. And it's just like, it was a 110-pound lab shepherd mix and
Oh.
just yeah, love. And yeah, and it's just like, okay. But it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, because the fish didn't last long and, and that it's just not a dog. So,
Well, and the fish don't wag their tails and
no,
like,
and don't come up to you when you need them to. Right. Yeah. And it's just like that. So, um, you once wrote, or at least you may have said, or you should have said, right? Or maybe you didn't, and we'll just make it up. My personal and
Lucy would be good.
professional journey inspires my life's work.
Hmm.
What does that mean for you?
Um, well, you were talking about the work that it takes to become a CP supervisor.
Yeah.
Well, and a chaplain, and we talk a lot about use of self, like how you use yourself in what you're doing, both helpfully and unhelpfully. I mean, you have to know both of those things. So I think that's part of it, um, like the personal parts of my life. Like I think about my mom who wanted to go to college. She graduated from high school, and I guess that was when would that have been? 1953,
Okay.
I think. And her parents just said no, even though her high school teacher had said, you'd be a really good math teacher.
Yeah.
Um, so like growing up, my mom always encouraged all of us that, well, she didn't even encourage, she was just like, you guys are going to college.
So
um,
don't ask. That's where you're going. Right. Yeah.
right. But there was also like nothing that she said that I couldn't do. I mean, she didn't say, oh, you're not going to be able to do that. I
Right.
mean, I'm sure, because I think about myself as a parent, and my kids, and
Yeah.
like there are probably things that I think, I don't know if that's going to work. But like one of the things I learned from my mom is you have to let your kids, you know, make their own
Make their
way.
own choices. Right. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a part of it. And certainly my story with my twin brother who died by suicide, and the way that I was, accompanied in that by
Yeah.
by others. informs my story as well.
Yeah. We use, and I use the word accompany a lot. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's our ELCA's missional theology is that of accompaniment. And so what does accompaniment mean to you? Talked about, well, I'll let you define it. How about that?
Mm-hmm. Um, well, for me, it involves listening
Yeah.
for one thing. I mean, like holding a space for wherever someone is in that moment.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes affirming
Yeah.
and sometimes challenging or confronting.
Yeah.
I don't think accompaniment always needs to feel comfortable. In fact,
No.
in
Right.
fact, I don't think that's accompaniment then,
Right.
you
Yeah,
know.
because then you're not feeling it. If I'm walking with you and I'm comfortable, I'm not feeling it.
Right.
I'm really not accompanying you. I'm just feeling good
Mhm.
about myself.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's about
Yeah.
authenticity that
Yeah.
you can hear and see who I am and challenge that or affirm it and I can do the same with the other person.
But that doesn't stop us from walking together on the journey and the path. I mean, we can for us to have that conversation as we walk along is
Right.
right, is the thing. So yeah, it's just I think I'm a retired police officer and 20 years of that, and everybody, oh, it's it must have been so different. And I'm like, I stood with people in the worst moments of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and many times they thought I was the cause of that worst moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had to stand with them, and so it, law enforcement prepared me. And then I do my unit of CPE was as a police chaplain in New Orleans. That's where
Oh wow.
oh wow, right.
Huh.
So yeah, in 2001, and yeah, that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But it's yeah, standing in the midst with people and being listening and being willing to hear people's stories. I went with Katrina. I went back, of course, and did hurricane work, and I would just tell people, well, it's going to be rough work, and no, basically just shut up and listen to their stories. That's what they
Right.
really need you to do the most. Yes, we're going to hang drywall. Yes, we're going to do that, but they really need you to hear their story.
Exactly.
And that was just fantastic work for people that were willing to just go down and leave their stuff at home and just listen to people's stories because they had stories to tell, beautiful stories to tell. Yeah.
And I think that's why chaplains are so important in healthcare settings because nurses and physicians and I mean everyone else on the care team, they don't have that kind of time.
No,
um,
yeah.
and we do.
And they need it as much as the people who are staying in the rooms. Most,
Yeah, because here's the thing, like nurses are like they love their patients
yeah,
and it kills them if their patient is crying.
yeah,
So when they know they can call the chaplain and somebody can be with them, it's like, whew, okay, the chaplain's here.
right. I can step outside and I can, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So Legacy Emanuel, tell me a little bit about that.
So I'm the director of spiritual care and CPE there. I'm going into my second year as the director, although I've been there for 10 years. So it was a hospital begun by Lutherans in the Portland area.
Yeah,
Um, and it's the only Emmanuel that I've encountered other than the Emmanuel and Marion that's spelled the same way with
right,
capital E1M, right? Which I
right.
thought was pretty cool.
It's
Yeah.
pretty unique. There's not many. Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's cool stuff.
But it has I mean, I love it. We do wonderful, wonderful work there. And really difficult and challenging things have happened there. So for instance, um, Legacy Emmanuel is in an historically Black neighborhood in North Portland. And part of Emmanuel's story is that they basically got the city of Portland to move African American families out of their homes so that they could build that hospital. And so we've really had the work of repair to do. That we're still doing that work. It's ongoing, And we feel the repercussions when people from the neighborhood will come and not necessarily feel like they can trust what's going on in the hospital. And I totally get that, right? I mean, maybe their grandparents' home sat on the ground
The
where they
ground
are.
we're standing on. Right. Right.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
So, but I appreciate the hospital that it's willing to, well, I would say has become more willing in the 10 years that I've been there to have those difficult conversations, because it's real.
Yeah. Yeah. And we wrestle with that. I mean, they're in some sense, yeah, we, the collective we, displaced them from their homes. And
Mhm.
yeah, and yet we are still all over the world displacing people from their homes. And
Right,
we
right.
can learn in our own neighborhood. You know, we look at the Middle East and what's going on. That's
Hmm.
multiple displacements, multiple times over, you know, and yeah,
Right.
we have something to learn even in our own selves about.
Well, in the history of this country, just with indigenous people, I mean, it's like, don't even get me started.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean it's just a story of displacement and yeah, and colonization, and it's just, oh my gosh. And yeah.
Mhm. Well, and I think about it, you've probably been like at meetings or events where, there will be an acknowledgement of we're standing on the land of, and I'm like, gosh, like we should be doing that everywhere because we all are,
We
right?
all, right. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is, we get into immigration discussions and I'm like, I don't know about you, but my family's not from here originally, but I can tell you
Right.
where they're from. I've been there, but it
Right.
I wasn't on this continent. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Hmm.
yeah, and so yeah, it's crazy.
Hmm.
Um, so on April 8th, there's going to be this wonderful solar eclipse, and like Marion, Ohio is
Ah,
going to be like the center of this thing. So are you coming back with the millions of people that we're expecting to see it go dark at 3 in the afternoon? Are you going to venture back for that? Because I can give you a free parking space if you want. Sure.
well, I am not because a couple of years ago we were they call it the line of totality, right? Is that
Yeah,
what they
right.
call
This is what you look it up. You'll see Marion, Ohio, right in the.
we were in the line of totality here in Oregon. So
Oh,
we went down. We have friends who live in Salem,
yeah.
and we went to a winery that was in the line of totality, and we had our blankets on the side of the hill,
Yeah.
and it was really cool.
Cool. Yeah.
We were.
Everybody,
You
yeah,
have
get
your
your
stuff
glasses,
left.
right. We're all getting our glasses, but everybody's all getting worked up because we are. We're like, it's really the very, very center is like Kenton. But
Mhm.
so we're like, and the city's going to shut down. And I'm like, and they came to me, it's like, what are we going to do? I'm like, well, let's pass out popcorn. I mean,
There
it's
you
like, I mean, it's like, yeah. So,
go.
and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, what? Don't get too worried about it. It'll be okay. It's only 8 minutes and it'll be
Right.
okay. We'll get it. So everybody's all worked up about that here. So good for you. So you survived the whole being in the line of totality, and
Yeah.
good for
The
you.
worst thing was the traffic afterwards.
Right. Everybody getting out of town. Right.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because like I have Waze on my phone. So I put it into Waze, and Waze kept changing because like we would go a certain way, and then everybody else did too. So
Because Wade said to go that way. Yeah. It's like, oh,
exactly.
that's cool. So you were once in your younger days, uh, counseled on lofting hymnals.
Uh-huh.
So how did that come about, Jill?
So am I allowed to use
Pastor, Reverend Doctor, how did that go?
am I allowed to use names on here?
Yeah, you can use any name you want.
Well, okay. Well then, Reverend John Bull,
The now Reverend John Bull,
the
right?
now Reverend John Bull, yeah, and we were sitting in the um quiet, not the what's it called,
The
the balcony,
balcony, right?
because we always sat in the back row of the balcony. But does anyone sit up there anymore, or is it
No,
closed?
not a lot. We still have, there's some fixing. We had a roof leak, and
Uh-huh.
so we've had to mediate the roof leak, but then we've got to repaint and everything. And
Uh-huh.
we're hoping to get that done here soon. Yeah. So the
Well,
people can go to the balcony and throw hymnals at people. Right.
well, and here's the thing. I think might be a way to get more Lutheran clergy if you reopen the
The
balcony, because
balcony.
both of us became clergy people. So, but yeah, we just started. We were Henry Seibert was preaching, and we just, we were just turning them in our hand, and then we started, like 6 inches, 12 inches, and then like way up. Yeah.
Yeah. So how
Hank
high did they get? How high did they get? Truth. How high? Yeah, they were.
Um, well, like from my lap, I'm looking. I'm guessing they were up like 5 feet at least. I mean, we're lucky we didn't.
Enough for Hank to see them
Yes.
from the floor, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll yeah, I had lunch with Hank. Well, at the recent funeral of Bob's, and so
Uh-huh.
yeah, and so he's coming back to preach. It'll be fun. But
Yeah.
I'll ask him about that if he
Yeah,
remembers.
ask him
I'll
about
ask
that.
his version of the story, and we'll compare facts about. And yeah, yeah. So lightning round. Here's your lightning round questions. You ready?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
As we how many pairs of socks do you have? How many pairs?
Oh my gosh. I too many.
Then why do we have too many pairs of socks, Jill?
I really need to go through my sock drawer. Like, totally. I mean, there are probably like, I bet there are 25 pairs of socks, and I use like 3 of them.
Right.
But like, I just can't get rid of them because, like,
Why? Why can't you? What is attached to that sock that you can't get rid of it?
I don't know. What if I needed it? What if
You
I?
got, you got a whole drawer full of them, Jill. So if you lose a sock, so a sock gets a hole in it,
Mhm.
do you pitch the other one or do you save it?
Oh, well, it depends. That depends, because so I have like running socks, so there could be a hole, but I have the same running sock,
Yeah,
so I
you
could
can
get rid of the one
you
that has
can
a
mix and
hole.
match. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But if it was a matching sock, then I would throw both of them out, and
Oh,
that was the only match for it.
yeah. But then you're throwing away a good sock.
I am.
Okay.
Now you're making me worry. There could be other uses for this sock.
I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking the questions. I'll let you come up with your own solutions. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. Um, what are the books that changed your life?
It's probably easier for me to say what book didn't change my life. Because
Says
like
the English teacher. Right. I mean, it's
even the ones that are like bad.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
for instance, when I was a parish pastor here in Hood River, that's when the whole craze about the Left Behind books.
Oh yeah.
Hope there aren't any Left Behind fans listening. Sorry.
Probably not my followers, no. But
But
but I don't know. I don't
everybody
know.
was reading it, and
Right.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to read at least one because I just need to.
Have a vocabulary, right? I know. I know. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was horrible for 2 reasons. One, it was terrible writing, and remember, I'm an English teacher, so it was terrible.
Yeah.
And 2, why would anyone want to follow Jesus with the theology of that, which was basically, you better love Jesus or you're going to hell.
Right.
So I preached a sermon after that, after I read that,
Yeah.
was entitled "Left Behind for a Reason."
There you have it.
There you
There you go. What was the first book you wrote in? Like you took a note, wrote in it.
go. Probably, probably like the little, I'm guessing the catechism books that we had.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. There you
Yeah.
go.
I still have those on my shelf.
Yeah, somewhere. The little blue ones, they were like blue when we went through,
They're
weren't they?
like orange,
Oh, okay. Orange. Is that what they were? Oh, the orange with the like
like a sunset or something on
sunset.
it.
I was just gonna say like a sunset on it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. So you're back in the day when you would click through the channels because now everything's on DVR. You don't watch commercials.
Uh-huh.
What were the movies that if you click through and it was on, you would watch it to the end, no matter where it was in the movie when you clicked on it? What movies would you always watch, no matter where it was?
I can't think of any movies. I mean, like shows that I would watch
Yeah,
would be like I would watch The Twilight Zone no matter where it was.
here it is.
And I'd be trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it was in the day where you went to more movies.
Yeah, right. We didn't watch. We went to the movies instead of
Yeah.
watching them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um. So give me two true things and one lie, and about you, and let me see if I can figure out what the lie is. I'll just make a guess.
Okay. I think here.
Two truths and a lie.
Um, I would love to go skydiving.
Ooh.
Uh, I'm a runner and I collect wine.
Okay, you said you had running socks, so I'm going to say you're a runner. You went to a winery for the eclipse. So theologically, or rationally, but you might be the type of person that you really want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. So I'm going to say collecting wine is the lie.
Just a second.
She's going to show me her wine collection.
Here's one of the bottles from my most recent one.
Well, okay, I did. So it's jumping out of the airplane.
Oh, I would never go skydiving. Never in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, this plane's going to land soon, and I'll just wait for that. I don't feel the need to, right. Right. I'm like you. I'm like, there's no reason to leave a perfectly good airplane.
No.
Yeah. So, um, thorns and roses. So, the most challenging thing in your life and the most successful thing. Thorns and roses.
Now or ever?
Whichever you want to answer it. However you want to answer that. It's your choice.
I would say the most challenging thing for me right now, and it's been going on for a while, is just how divided the world is and how black and white, this or that.
Yeah.
Partly because I'm Lutheran and we like paradox, and it's always about the both and, not the either or.
Right.
Um, so I find that really challenging. I mean, I certainly have certain political
Sure.
perspectives on life, but like I feel myself a lot of times getting drawn into that, black and white sort of thinking, and
Yeah.
I think it's harmful. It's harmful to me, it's
Right.
harmful to others, and it's harmful to the world as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Um, Biggest success, I would say, my biggest success is the relationships that I've cultivated with my adult kids, because they're, what are they? 20. Emil is going to be 27 this year. Alden will be 25.
Yeah.
And they'll call me to consult with me about things, which is really cool. And they don't always, take my consultation. But they're calling. We can argue with one another and stay in relationship, and we just love to hang out together too, which is it's awesome. I
Oh,
love
that's
that.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, that's cool. Do they live close or?
Alden lives in Oakland, California.
Okay.
Emilia just moved back from New York City because she was going to school there. She's finished her last academic semester for her Doctor of Physical Therapy degree, and now she's finishing her clinicals in Portland. So we're living together
Oh, good.
again. It's
That's
fun.
cool. Oh, that's
Yeah,
neat.
yeah.
Oh, wow. So the last one, the Earth and Cup. So the Earth being for us is what grounds you in whatever way you see grounding. What grounds you? What's the Earth for you grounding?
Well, if I were being very literal about that, I would actually say the landscape and scenery around me. I live in the Columbia River Gorge,
Yeah,
and which is I work in Portland, which is 62 miles from here. But like coming back to Hood River, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is where I want to be, and it just feeds
yeah,
me whether I'm outdoors or in my house. And I think part of that is because of the just the geography around here, which was made by the Great Missoula floods. So talk about conflict and confrontation,
yeah,
right? Bringing
yeah.
about this beautiful place. So
Neat. Ah, and then the cup refers to the Zen poem of you have to empty your cup so it can be filled again. And so, what do you do to empty your cup? And then, what do you do to fill your cup?
for me, they're the same thing because I'm an introvert.
Yeah,
So um, so my alone time is really important to me, and I don't have any problems being in my house on my own for days on end if people are gone.
right?
So that's how I empty my cup because I can have conversations with myself out loud, and I often do that when I'm alone. And it fills me up too.
Yeah,
I get energized by that.
yeah, neat, neat. Um, yeah, as we come up, we're moving through Lent and approaching Easter. What is um your to finish up one promise of hope? What gives you hope?
What gives me hope is people who are willing to live in authentic relationships together.
Hmm.
Um, and I think, well, I know I have that in my family, but I also witness that in the students that we have in CPE. Because it's really hard to be in CPE unless you're going to be authentic. I mean,
Right.
you can resist that, and certainly I did that as well when I was in CPE. But that gives me hope because when I think about the perfect church, it's the place where I get to be my most authentic self, which means people can see the best of me and the worst of me.
But
Hmm.
it's you. But that is all. I mean, that's the thing.
It's
That's
all
you.
me.
It's
Hmm.
all you. And
Yep.
it's all the created beings that we are. And it's yeah. And that's authentic. That's what authenticity is about. That's all of it. You get all of me. And
And I think people hunger for that.
I
I mean,
think
I guess that's what gives me hope too, is that there are people who hunger for that.
yeah. Yeah. And I think that is the solution to because I agree with you too. The divisiveness of our world currently is just destructive,
Mm,
regardless on what side. I mean, it
exactly.
absolutely doesn't matter. And it's
Hmm.
and I think if we just get back to, or maybe for the first time in reality, just be authentic and just be who you are, and let's just talk about it and help me understand. Help me understand why you see the world that way
Hmm.
because I don't. And so, and then maybe I can help you understand why I see it different.
Right. And you
Not
don't
even
even
have
have to
to.
agree with each other.
Right. And we don't have to convince each other and we don't have to
Hmm.
just help me understand how you see it and why you see it differently. And then, you know, yeah. And I think that is the solution.
Hmm.
And it's about relationships and all that. So yeah.
Hmm.
Well, thank you. I'll let you get back to the world and resting and asking yourself questions, but I appreciate this.
Thank you. I
Good.
appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been good to catch up. Yeah. Good. Well, thanks. And where can people find you? If people wanted to reach out, can they find you? Or you're just like, I'm an introvert, leave me alone.
No, they can find
Yeah.
me probably if they looked up let's see, what's our website? Legacyhealth.org.
Okay.
Like,
Now, today, right?
yeah, legacyhealth.org,
Okay.
and we have a clinical pastoral education
Okay.
site there, and
Yeah.
my contact information is on that.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll put that in the notes. And then, yeah, if anybody want to reach out.
Well, and they can contact me through you too.
Okay. Yeah. If they find me, I can put you in contact with them. Cool. All righty. Well, thanks. And yeah, it's just been fun.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.